Hi, this is Shelby with Updweller, and today I will be taking you through the best Merry Maids alternatives for every home and budget. Because personally, I was this close to booking with Merry Maids when a friend shared a personal horror story with me. She'd had them out multiple times, and on more than one occasion, she'd gotten home to find the crew had left without doing every task that they had previously agreed to. This continued until one particular visit during which something fragile of hers was broken, and when she tried to reach the local office to talk about it because her cleaners told her they weren't authorized to have those kinds of discussions, the main office ghosted her for over a week, with her calling daily before she finally heard back from someone. Now, I know, that's just one horror story from one person. But when I started exploring the idea of booking Merry Maids for my own home and looking at reviews online, I found that a lot of people had almost identical complaints. And that, of course, sent me down a research rabbit hole. I researched every cleaning service I could find. I got quotes from as many of them as I could. I spoke directly with people at my local offices to get as clear of a picture as possible what it would look like to work with one of these companies. And today I am sharing all of my findings and personal experiences with you in this video about the 5 best Merry Maids alternatives. I'll walk you through what I think makes each one worth considering, who each service is best for, and which one was my top pick in the end. Let's get into it. But before we get into these 5 options, I want to give you 4 questions that you should ask yourself before we go any further. Because which of these 5 cleaning services is going to be ideal for you is going to depend entirely on how you answer these questions. First, how often do you need cleaning? If you're looking for weekly or bi-weekly cleaning, then signing up for a recurring service or even a membership makes a lot of sense in order to get the best value. If you only want occasional cleaning or like before having big gatherings, then there are other options on this list that will suit that too. Second, does it matter to you if you get the same cleaner or team of cleaners with every single service? It was actually harder than I expected to find companies that offered that, but I did manage to find a few. Third, what is your comfortable monthly budget for cleaning? Most of the options in this roundup are quote-based, where you tell them what you want and they give you a price. So having a clear idea of your ideal number is going to make those conversations go a lot faster. And fourth, do you need anything beyond standard ongoing cleaning? Some of these services will let you add add-ons before you get going with your contract, but then you're locked in. Others let you mix and match with every single service as you go. So this is another question to really have a clear answer on before you start trying to weigh these 5 options. Now you might want to pause here and spend a few moments thinking about your answers to these questions. With that said, let's look at the 5 options. First up is Molly Maid, which is probably one of the most well-known alternatives if you're already thinking about Merry Maids. They're both national cleaning companies with a similar team-based model, but there are a couple of things worth knowing before you reach out for a quote. Let's try that again. First up is Molly Maid, which is probably one of the most well-known alternatives if you're already thinking about Merry Maids. They're both national cleaning companies with a similar team-based model, but there are a couple of things worth knowing before you reach out for a quote. The first thing might actually feel a little bit familiar if you've used Merry Maids before, and that is that they offer the neighborly done right promise at Molly Maid, and it works almost identically to Merry Maid's 5-star promise. Basically, the way it works is you notify your local franchise by the end of the next business day if something wasn't right with your cleaning, and they'll come back at no extra charge. So if you like that policy at Merry Maids, you will get pretty much the exact same thing right here. The second thing is that when I went to get a quote, I ran into something I very much was not expecting. I've pulled up the page here so you can see. And that is that my local Molly Maid location wanted to schedule an in-home estimate before giving me any numbers. Now, I totally understand that for something like a kitchen remodel, right? But for cleaning, I personally am just not comfortable having a stranger come to my home and look at every nook and cranny just to find out if it's even in my budget. Like, you don't get any kind of ballpark pricing before you get to this screen, so it's a total mystery. And I'll also say that because Molly Maid is a franchise, this is just how the one nearest me operates. The one nearest you might do phone call or text, but you'll also notice that I'm here at the mollymaid.com main website, and that means that this in-home estimate feature is like baked into the nationwide website. So that makes me think this is something they do for everybody, and again, just kind of outside of my comfort zone. So I would say the biggest double-edged sword with Molly Maid is that it is a franchise just like Merry Maids. That can be good and that you kind of know what to expect, right? They've got all these locations around the country and you know that you're going to get a person or a small team and it's going to be the same general level of service. That is all good stuff. The flip side, though, is that the pricing, the quality, the customer service, it all depends entirely on which specific location is going to be serving you. And that means that the pricing is going to vary wildly too. You know, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house in Seattle, one of the most expensive places in the country to live right now, is likely going to cost quite a bit more than an identical home in, say, Oklahoma or somewhere more rural in Missouri or Illinois. And the last thing I want to say about Molly Maid is that though I found quite a few excellent reviews, you know, as you can see from this little banner right here, I noticed a pattern come up in the negative reviews, and pretty much every person who had something bad to say about their experience with Molly Maid said that reaching someone at the local office when something goes wrong can be really difficult. Like, you might get ghosted for a week or more if a cleaner happens to break something at your home, for example. And I saw that complaint come up many, many times with Merry Maids, even though it didn't happen to me personally. So all of that said, Molly Maid is a great alternative to Merry Maids. It is very comparable in a lot of ways, including their satisfaction guarantee. But it doesn't really solve the problem of having kind of a unpredictable level of service from the location that you work with. But it doesn't really solve the problem of having kind of luck of the draw when it comes to whichever location is nearest you. All in all, Molly Maid is going to be best for someone who wants the familiarity of a well-known cleaning company and is comfortable going through an in-home quote process before getting any hard numbers. The second alternative that I would recommend over Merry Maids is going to be the Cleaning Authority. And this one was one of the more surprising options that I looked into because they do something that none of the others do, and that is their system called the Detail Clean Rotation System. So here's how it works. Your first 2 visits are full top to bottom deep cleans to get your whole home to the same baseline, which they explain here. After that, every visit is still a full cleaning of your entire house, but one area of your home is going to get extra detailed attention. As you can see here, they rotate between the bathrooms, the kitchen, living areas, and sleeping areas. So on a bathroom week, as you can see from their example here, you might get the tile grouting scrub, the shower door might get a deep clean, and then doors, door frames, and fronts of cabinets are also hand wiped. That's on top of the regular bathroom cleaning that they'll also be doing. And then on the next visit, the kitchen is going to be what gets that extra bit of attention. What this means is that over time, no area of your home ever gets neglected. I thought this was really clever as someone who personally struggles to keep every area of my home to the same standard of clean. But worth knowing before you reach out is the fact that the Cleaning Authority also requires a free in-home walkthrough before they'll schedule your first clean, very similar to Molly Maid. So you're going to need to be comfortable with having that person in your home before you can get any real numbers. And that said, there is one other thing that really gave me pause when I was researching the Cleaning Authority. So you'll notice they don't call out having good reviews here in this section on their homepage. I did some digging, and while I did find a lot of positive reviews, I found a complaint that came up again and again. And multiple customers said that they were charged significantly more than their original quote. The reason that this happened is because the cleaning team ran over the estimated time. What made it worse is that in every scenario, the crew said nothing. Customers only found out when they saw the charge after the fact. So if you're going to get pricing from the Cleaning Authority, it is important that while you are filling out any kind of contract or agreement, that you look to see that there is a line item where you authorize cleaning beyond the agreed upon time. If you check that box and sign on that dotted line, then you might be in for an unpleasant surprise. Now, that said, I do truly think that the Cleaning Authority is a great option, and it's going to be best for someone who's felt like previous cleaning services only ever did surface cleaning. Anybody who wants a system like this that truly gets into the nooks and crannies over time. Now, third is MaidPro, and MaidPro caught my attention because of one specific thing they do differently. They try to send the same cleaner or the same small team to your home every single visit, as you can see right here. And I gotta tell you, I really scoured both the Merry Maids website and the Molly Maid website, talked to people at both of my local locations, and neither of them offer anything like this. There's no guarantee, and they really aren't comfortable saying, yes, we will try to send the same team every time. I thought that was interesting. Now, that said, you'll also notice that this is not a hard guarantee by any means. As you can see, if your regular cleaner is unavailable, they'll try to send someone who is best suited to your needs. But even without it being a hard guarantee, having this consistency as a goal that they call out and something they actively work towards can make a meaningful difference, especially if you care about your cleaner getting to know your home and how you like things done. I also like that every clean follows this 49 49-point checklist regardless of which location you're working with. And in addition to the checklist, just like Merry Maids and Molly Maid, there is a satisfaction guarantee here. It's the Pro Clean Promise, and it works exactly the same way it does with Merry Maids and Molly Maid. If for any reason you're unhappy, you just let them know within 24 hours, and they'll return to re-clean the area at no additional cost. So all of this said, I like MaidPro as an alternative to Merry Maids because it has a lot of the same policies and structure that Merry Maids does well, but they go further by trying to send the same team and by having this awesome 49-point checklist. But the one thing to check before you get too excited about MaidPro is the availability. Coverage is really strong on the East Coast and in parts of the South and Midwest, as you can see here. But if you're in Montana, the Dakotas, even Oregon, there simply may not be a location near you. So before you start thinking about whether this one is an option that you want to consider, make sure they have a location that serves where you're located. And here, pricing is quote-based like the others. When I clicked through the get a free estimate process, eventually it told me that somebody would be in touch to talk with me via phone about my quote. All in all, I think MaidPro is really best for someone who left Merry Maids specifically because their cleaning team kept changing and who wants a service that really puts effort into keeping that team consistent. Fourth, we've got Handy. And whereas the first three that we've looked at so far are structured very similar to Merry Maids in that they are franchise-based locations, Handy is actually an app-based platform, not a cleaning company. And it's one of only 2 options on this list where you can see your price before you ever have to talk to anyone. I love that. Now, getting that price is pretty straightforward. You're going to come in and enter your home info. You pick a date that works for you for your first cleaning, and then you just put in your email address. And then you can hit get a price. I also love that before you even click anything, they've already given you a time estimate of how many hours they think it's going to take. This upfront clarity, oh, I just love it after all of the quotes and phone calls that I went through for the other 3 options. And now when you click get a price, just like that, you have a price for your booking. That's simple, didn't have to wait. I love this. Now, that said, Handy's plans are set up as a recurring commitment, not as something that you book as a one-off. So first you choose your planned frequency, which means whether you want your cleaner to come by monthly, bi-weekly, which is every 2 weeks, or weekly. And then you pick your commitment term. Are you committing to, for example, weekly cleanings for 3 months, for 6 months, or for 12 months? And if you ultimately go with Handy, I invite you to play with this a little bit because, for example, I noticed if you wanted monthly cleaning and a 12-month contract, you can save 50%. Whereas if you go weekly cleaning for a 12-month contract, you save 11%. Think about how much cleaning you actually need, of course, but I appreciate that this is truly customizable with different discounts for different walks of life. However, I want to be clear that you are signing a contract here, not just booking a cleaning. So if you cancel before your contract is complete, you will have to pay a $99 cancellation fee. So what do you do if you are not the type of person or family who knows exactly what kind of cleaning you want, exactly how often for the next quarter of a year? Well, then you can look at the Handy Select membership. They advertise this a little bit less, but it's also a good option. For this one, you pay either $10 a month or $99 a year. This is still a membership, kind of similar to the option we were just looking at, but you get to book individual sessions on demand rather than saying, yes, come on this day every single week for the next 3 months. Basically, this is a much more flexible option if you don't want to lock into a fixed schedule, but you do want ongoing discounted cleaning. All of this said, even though you've got pricing here, I would say that what Handy isn't is budget focused. It is really designed around the convenience of a consistent, predictable schedule. You set it up, it runs, the per clean price is what you expect to pay every single time unless you change anything, and that's it. So if you want a true set it and forget it option, I would say this would be a good one to look at. If you want to get the most bang for your buck in terms of budget-friendly cleaning, then you're going to want to look at our next option. So the last thing I'll say here is that Handy is truly best for someone who hates making phone calls and just wants to book online and see what it costs and is not particularly concerned about the budget. Okay, and number 5 is Homeaglow. This is my top pick, and I want to take a little bit more time talking about this one because the pricing model here is a little bit different, and I want to make sure that you understand it before you decide whether or not to sign up. So Homeaglow is an online platform where you browse cleaner profiles, read the reviews left for those cleaners, and then you book directly. At no point in this process is Homeaglow going to assign a team to you. From your first cleaning to your 10th cleaning and beyond, you choose who comes to your home every single time. So if you find someone you like, you just rebook them every single time. It's very simple. And now let me walk you through how the cost breaks down. because if you've heard about this company before or even come to their website, you've likely heard about this $19 special that they like to offer. So let's get started. So you'll type in your zip code first, and they'll let you know whether they're available in your zip code, at which point you can continue. So here's how the cost breaks down. As you can see here, they are offering me my first clean, which they estimate to be about 3 hours of cleaning, for $19, which is $75 off. And you'll see that no matter how often I need cleaning, it doesn't change this intro offer. You'll also notice there's this little blurb here that talks about terms and a privacy policy. Now, I'll be honest, I am typically the person who just checks the box saying, yep, I read the terms and the privacy policy, and that's fine. Whenever I'm looking at something with a really deep discount, I like to understand what it is that I'm buying and signing up for. So when you read through these terms, you'll see that what you're actually doing is you're signing up for a Forever Clean membership if you book this cleaning here. That membership is called Forever Clean and is going to cost you $59 a month every month. That membership is what unlocks these deeply discounted rates. And while your first clean is going to be about $19 if you grab this same offer, moving on from that, you're going to be looking at rates of about $20 per hour per cleaner instead of anywhere from $50 to $80 an hour, which is closer to what places like Merry Maids charge. And with this Forever Clean membership, the initial contract is for 6 months. So you are signing up for 6 months of regular cleaning when you say how often you need cleanings. But all that said, I feel like this is just a hard model to explain without real numbers. So let me break down what it worked out to for my house. I was quoted $300 per visit by Merry Maids for bi-weekly cleaning, so that's every 2 weeks. As a reminder, my house is 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. That adds up to $600 a month before taxes and tip. With Homeaglow, I'm looking at about $160 per cleaning at the same cadence, 2 visits a month, plus the $59 membership. That is only about $379 a month total before taxes and tip, compared to the $600 a month I was looking at with Merry Maids for the same frequency of cleaning, and based on the checklist that I've looked at, the same in-depth level of cleaning as well. And now the last thing I want to be clear about here is the cancellation terms for this membership. So if you cancel before the initial 6 months that I just mentioned, they are going to come back and retroactively bill you full price for your first cleaning. That typically works out to several $100s more that you will owe depending on the size of your home and the level of in-depth cleaning that they did. What all of that means is that Homeaglow is not a service to sign up for if you just need one quick deep cleaning before a graduation party. But if you're planning on regular cleaning and you know that going in that you want budget-friendly, ongoing cleaning on a long term, then the value here is really hard to beat. And I have to say, I really do love the ability to browse and personally pick my cleaner. That is something that none of the other options on this list offer in the same way. And so, all told, I would say Homeaglow is going to be best for anybody who wants recurring cleaning at a price that makes a lot of sense and is very budget-friendly month over month. So, with all of that said, here is like the TLDR on which service I would recommend depending on your needs. If you want the familiarity of a big cleaning company that feels very similar to Merry Maids, including that satisfaction guarantee, I suggest you look at Molly Maid first. If you always feel like cleaners you've worked with only really wipe the surface and never really get deep clean, then the Cleaning Authority has a system designed to solve that exact problem. If having the same cleaner or team of cleaners every time is really important and you still want to stick with the familiar model that Merry Maids uses, then look at MaidPro because they're very similar, but they have that added bonus of trying to send the same team. If you just want to see your price and book online and not have to talk to anybody, then you're going to want to take a look at Handy, which also has an app for smartphones. And if you're looking for booking regular, ongoing cleaning and you want the best possible value, Homeaglow is where I would send you, and it is the service that I am now using myself. All of this said, though, hiring a home cleaner is kind of a personal, intimate thing, right? And I find that the more research I did, the more questions I had. So if this video brings up any questions for you, please feel free to drop them in the comments where we'll respond with our take. Again, I'm Shelby with Updweller, and if you found this video on the best alternatives for Merry Maids helpful, be sure to subscribe so you see more of our videos in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.